Welcome back for another episode of Branching Out with Sierra. In today's episode, I'm going to talk about an observation that I've had recently with some of the clients I'm working with. Sometimes I ask them about the feedback they're receiving from those that they lead. And a lot of them share that they don't really receive any feedback. They're not sure how they're doing and wouldn't know unless they're observing an impact directly on their own. A lot of times people don't tell us necessarily if we're doing a good job. And it made me think about the idea that sometimes we are leading, working towards an outcome that we might not immediately see. Sometimes the impact as a leader that you have, it lasts hopefully long after you leave an organization, but maybe you don't get to see it come to fruition while you're there, and the impact lasts over time. So I feel like many times leaders are doing the right things, but they wonder if it's actually working. They wonder if it's having an impact on anyone. They're not getting feedback, so they don't know. And unless there is a very clear, visible win, a way for them to measure their impact or measure success, they're just unsure. So today's episode is entitled Leading for the Outcome You Will Not Personally See, because I wanted to take some time to think about that, maybe share some ideas about how we can approach this and keep kind of a positive mindset around the work that we're doing, kind of keep things in perspective, despite not always seeing the feedback that we want or hearing the feedback that we want. You know, I've talked a lot about goal setting. You know that I'm passionate about this. But something that goes along with goal setting is the fact that we as humans crave immediate results. When I set goals with people, they might get discouraged day 2 because they have not seen the change that they wanted to see in themselves. And we're not 100% realistic about how quickly those changes will occur, and really how we're going to be able to measure it. And I really feel like we crave those immediate results because of a lot of things in our environment. We know that we have performance reviews and people might be measuring our success on a piece of paper, and we're going to review that annually. And so we see that data in front of us. We might have specific metrics that the organization we're working for or with they're measuring success from, and we're having to face that data on a regular basis. I think that we crave immediate results because we look at the people around us and we're comparing ourselves to them. Especially when it comes to social media, the narrative that people create, they highlight this, what appears to be instant success with things, which really isn't behind the scenes. And so it makes this competition piece even worse. All of these things, I think, contribute to this need for us to see immediate results and know that the work we're doing is paying off. Otherwise, why are we going to continue to do it? It's so much work. It's not natural for us. So why am I going to push myself outside my comfort zone? I want to feel like I'm effective. I don't want to waste time. And you really need that reassurance that it's been worth it. So I think that having a sense of urgency can be a great thing. We love having a sense of urgency, but we also have to be more realistic about the time that it takes to have a truly measurable impact. And when we're talking about leadership, we're talking about impacting people, the people around us. Sometimes we can impact a person's life in a matter of seconds by one thing that we've said or done. Sometimes we can interact with someone hundreds of times before something occurs that really makes a difference for them, and they may never tell you. They may carry it with them over time, and it's a special memory for them, and it really stands out as, a key moment in their life, but they've never said anything to you. So these big changes tend to happen over time. When we're talking about whether it's leading one person and having influence over that one person's life, or we're talking about leading a team, managing the culture of an entire organization. It takes time for all of these things to happen. So I feel like when we're early on in our leadership journey, people are constantly looking to us to see how competent we are in the, skill set that we have. We're focused on execution. How quickly can that person get results? And that's when the comparison comes in. But if you look at people who have been leading for a while and the shift in what their leadership focuses on, I feel like you're really looking at sustainability of the things that they're putting into practice. You start looking at whether or not they're able to transfer ownership of the thing that they do to the next person who's going to do it when they're no longer with the organization. Is this person having influence still when they're not there? They don't have to be present anymore. And the things that they did, the decisions they made, the values that they had, the behaviors that they modeled continue to be remembered by people after them. That really makes a difference. So I feel like there is this difference between when you're early on in leadership and then later on what you really can focus on, and what people might be looking for as far as success looks like for you. So what I want to focus on is the long game leadership. That's what I find coming up time and time again. I've seen a couple of really big leadership changes for some of my clients lately, people leaving positions that they've been in for a long time, or even positions they've been in for a short time, but they've had a major impact. And then after they're gone, everybody coming forward and talking about how much they're going to be missed and what they did for the culture, the environment that people are working in, and how is anybody going to fill those shoes, and so on. It makes me kind of feel bad that maybe people didn't express that while they were still there. But when we're talking about long game leadership, how can you invest in that more intentionally? How can you look at the long game and not be obsessed with the sense of urgency and immediate rewards, or I'm going to stop trying? So one of the things that I think you can do to invest in the long term is to invest time and energy into people before they see the value in themselves. So a lot of people might not feel ready for the challenges that you want to give them. I was just on a call a minute ago talking about goal setting. We were talking about setting risky goals, and that's pushing people outside their comfort zones. Sometimes we want to empower people around us to step up to the plate and learn things and do things that they don't realize they're capable of. They don't think it's within reach, and we need to be able to advocate for them. Let them try it. Let them make mistakes and be okay with it. But one of the hardest things about it that I tend to hear is, well, it takes a lot of time for me to invest in this person when I could just do it faster myself, and I could invest in them in the future. Now is not the time. I just don't have time to slow down and give them what they need right now. I know time and time again that evidence shows that if you invest the time up front, you save tons of time later, because they're able to take that baton and run with it and implement many times over and over again. And each time that they do, they're saving you time. So I don't really feel that that is a good reason. We need to slow down and invest in the long game. And we also need to be willing to allow these people to do things that carry a little risk, where we're encouraging them to take the risk and we're there to support them. If they quote unquote fail, which I don't believe you failed until you stop trying. So failure for them might mean I don't feel like I was successful the first time that I did it. But really, if they're making mistakes, they're not getting the results that they wanted. Being there for them, showing that you'll continue to support them, and showing that you're willing to, take a chance on them. And then It requires you being patient when growth takes longer than expected, or growth is uneven for people on the team. Maybe some people are moving very quickly, picking up on a skill set quickly, and so you're giving them more and more challenges and letting them take more risks, but someone else, it's a lot slower, and that can create a lack of balance in the amount of energy you're putting into different people on the team, and you might not be patient with that. So I think it takes being intentional in all of those areas, coaching someone, even when it'd be faster to do it myself, allowing them to take the risk, being patient when growth amongst the team is uneven. So all of that goes back to, if I'm looking at long game leadership, I want to invest in people before they even realize they are ready. That's one thing that I think that you can do. Another thing that you can do to invest in the long game of leadership is to create systems that reduce the level of dependency on you. It's very common in the organizations that I work with that people are the holders of all of the information in their brain. And someone might have something happen to them. They can no longer work there. It might be a health thing, whatever might cause the shift. All of that knowledge goes out the door with them. And the people are left with what has been documented somewhere, if it has at all. And so long game leadership, to me, means also looking at putting systems in place that reduce that dependency, that having the processes that don't rely on memory, that don't rely on your presence in the room or your presence in the organization. In thinking about writing SOPs, having clear expectations of what success looks like in that area, despite you not being there. Here's what we were working towards, so that people understand that, and that they can be consistent in the way that they're doing things despite not having you there. So I think systems can be a really important piece. I know I've had a couple of episodes before that have to do with putting good systems in place. I think Mary Sue Dayhill was one of those episodes that had to do with processes and systems, automating things. But again, it goes back to reduce the level of dependency on you in the future. You should be actively doing that. Even if you don't think you're going anywhere anytime soon, we know unexpected things happen all the time. It can happen to any of us at any time. Matt and I talk about it with my business. If something were to happen to me, how would the people around me know who my clients are, what service I was providing, how they can get in contact with them, let them know what's going on, deliver on what we've committed to, and so on. I have to have all of those things in place as if it's going to happen. It has to be a priority for me. That's looking at the long game. Another thing that I think you can do to invest in the long game is protect the culture. Not always doing what's fastest or easiest and coming up with shortcuts, but instead making decisions that are in alignment with what the organization values, what you value as a person, really modeling those things for people and not compromising the trust that people have in you because of the consistency in what you model. This would also require addressing issues early on. So if something's not in alignment with the culture that you are trying to create, or the culture changes you are trying to make, having that difficult conversation up front, even when it's uncomfortable, to see if that person can get in alignment with the way, the direction that you're moving, the way that you want to do things. And sometimes people self-select and they choose to not be a part of that organization anymore because you have been able to shine a spotlight on the fact that their values and the organizational values are not one and the same. And so this isn't a great environment for them. And you're actually supporting them by allowing them the opportunity to reflect on that and find a place that is in better alignment. So I know that sometimes those conversations can be difficult, and people can be very defensive when it comes to the decisions they're making. But showing that you ultimately are looking out for their best interest in the future by helping them to find a place that better aligns for them, I think can make a really big difference. So the big thing here is sometimes what you're doing in the now seems to be less efficient because you're investing a lot of time up front. I'm investing time in modeling behaviors, in having these conversations, in training my people to do these things in my absence, in all of the above. I feel like the long game leadership often feels inefficient in the short term, but pays off so much more in the long term. So that's why I felt that this is worth sharing. I thought that the submission from a listener this week aligned kind of perfectly with what I'm talking about today, because having that difficult conversation really is looking at long game leadership, not looking at what's easiest right now. And the submission had to do with that. So I'm actually going to insert that right into the episode. So for those of you that haven't listened to episodes in the past, I do a segment, Leadership Unscripted, where people can write in with any challenges that they're facing anonymously, so that I can unpack that challenge on an episode, whether with a guest present or if it's just me, and hopefully give this person some ideas of things that they can try, or just giving some feedback on experiences that maybe I've had that might be helpful for them. So this one is about feedback backfiring. This person said, I gave what I thought was constructive feedback, keyword constructive, but the person got defensive and shut down. I want to help them grow, not discourage them. How do I handle it better next time? I was trying to think, and I probably should have looked in advance. I do think I have an episode or two specifically about having these conversations where we're giving feedback, using the GROW coaching model to ask questions rather than make statements. I think I've done a couple of episodes related to this, so I apologize. I can't point you to the exact episode number. Maybe you can do a quick search, but I'll give a high-level overview of what I've seen work here before. So again, this person gave constructive feedback, or they thought it was. The person got defensive and shut down. And we want to know how to handle it differently in the future. So how do we handle it differently? Well, I don't know what your delivery was the first time around. So I don't know anything about that person, about where that person was emotionally at the time that you shared this with them, what their communication style was, and what they would benefit from. So just a general question that you could ask yourself is, how might the information I'm about to give this person land with them? What are the different ways they might receive this information? Well, you could certainly put yourself in their shoes. If someone said this to me, how would it make me feel? But that's like not going to work for everybody, because not everybody's going to react the same way you are. And I have a lot of people who are direct and appreciate direct feedback, and that's not the way everybody's going to respond. So ask yourself, how might the thing that I want to share land with the person I'm about to share it with? What are some of the potential responses to it? In that moment, if they did not respond well to it, I think acknowledging that you see that they're not responding well, maybe stating, I can see that this was maybe not easy for you to hear. I want to make sure that this feels supportive, and you know that I'm sharing these things in order to help you grow, because I believe in you and I see the potential, right? All of those things that you can do to help them understand, but you've already, like, the blow has already occurred. So now you're just trying to repair it in the moment. I've seen a couple times where the repair in the moment between my clients actually created more issues. I've seen it even done in email with a back and forth email where they're trying to fix it, and the email should have stopped a long time ago because they've passed so many back and forth. They actually dug a little bit deeper of a hole instead of fixing things. So it should have been taken out of email, and it should have been discussed at a time where the emotions had settled. So in this specific situation, if you already can tell that it's had a negative impact, even suggesting, you know what, I'm going to give you some time to process it. I realize that maybe I did not deliver that in the best way for you. I want to set up a time to discuss this after things have settled a little bit, and choose a time. Identify a time that you can come back together and try again, and maybe explain it in a different way once the emotions are in control. Something else that I think might be helpful is to, when providing constructive criticism, to narrow your focus and not make blanket statements. So sometimes we catch ourselves saying something like, you always, or you never, which is usually an exaggeration. So they don't always do it. They might do it from time to time, or it's not that they never do this thing. It's that they don't do it as often enough as you would like. So really thinking about, in this situation, not a pattern in behavior over time, but in this situation, this is what I noticed occurred, where you're stating a real observation, rather than addressing a pattern over time. Now, I have to admit, with my coaching clients that I've been working with for a very long time, I will very openly state patterns that I've noticed, but I always know and ask in advance if they're open to that feedback. Usually know them well enough at that point to know that they're willing to hear what I'm noticing, and they know that I wouldn't be saying it if I didn't think that they would benefit from hearing the trend. But I do not recommend pointing out trends in general in a conversation. Just focus on the one situation, what you observed in that situation, and ask questions. What led you to make that decision? How did that impact you? If you were to do it again, what would you do differently? Ask these questions rather than very directly stating, this is what I saw, this is what I expect of you in the future, da 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 da. That's not going to work for everybody. It'll work for, people who enjoy directness, but most people that's not going to work well for. I go back to 69% of the population is primarily a high S in DISC. Those people are going to prefer that you ask questions and you have a conversation, not where you just explicitly state, this is what I saw, this is what I want, don't let it happen again. That's not going to work. So again, I recommend asking a lot of questions, being open-minded to what really caused the behavior, what was driving that, decision for them, and what changes they think they need to make. Then you can state your expectations and see if their definition of success and yours are in alignment or not. But those are the things that immediately come to mind. So some of my suggestions there are kind of repairing what you just did. And others are, if you were to have this conversation with someone in the future, how might you do it differently? But again, maybe check back and see if you can find an episode where I very specifically talk about this, because I'm pretty sure it exists. If not, I will commit to making one. So hopefully that's helpful for this listener. As always, if you have challenges that are popping up, please shoot us an email at info@branchingoutpodcast.com. I want to hear from you and know what you're dealing with. So even if it's not just me highlighting it with Leadership Unscripted, I might choose to do an entire episode on the topic if I see that it seems to be a trend for people. So the more I hear from you, the more I can deliver exactly what you're looking for. So, going back to the purpose of this episode, looking at long game leadership, I know we want to see immediate results. I gave some ideas of how you can invest in long game leadership, but still, you might not see the impact that you're having right away. So we have to find a way to stay committed even when we feel like we're not getting recognition for the impact that we're having. So when you're not feeling recognized for the things that you're doing and you're working really hard at, that can be hard for some people to want to keep trying so hard. When that happens, I think that it's best to look back and consider, why did I choose to do this in the first place? And when I say choose to do this, why did I choose to take on this role? Why am I choosing to lead a team of people and try to have a positive influence on them? Like, go back to your key motivators and what caused you to want to do this thing in the first place, and use that as a reminder of your why and the impact that it can have even long after you are there. This is why I always think that it's important for us to show appreciation and tell people how they're impacting our lives, because I think so often people aren't getting the feedback and don't realize what they've done, and they don't realize how much it mattered to someone else. That doesn't diminish the impact that it had that you haven't heard about it. Don't let that diminish, your efforts and your passion for what you're doing. We don't need constant validation from people to be an effective leader. You just need to know that you are trying to have a positive influence in any interaction that you have. And just that right there, choosing kindness in a situation and thinking about what the other person needs, is having an impact, even if they are not telling you. So hopefully that is helpful. I want to give a branching out challenge that goes along with this. So those that aren't frequent listeners, our branching out challenge is just what do I want to challenge you to do based on what I shared today? What might you be able to do differently or implement right away based on what I've shared? I want to make these episodes actionable for you. So I want you to reflect on this. What are you willing to do, or willing to build, or willing to invest the time in, even if you never get to see the results? So even if the ultimate goal isn't reached until after you leave the organization, you're still contributing to the growth that gets them there. What are you willing to do without seeing the result? Think about the impact of the things that you're doing on a regular basis, and how it can influence people much further down the line that will never meet you. The behavior that you're modeling for someone, they might model for the next person because they've learned it from you. And 5 people down the line, someone is behaving a certain way or making a certain decision based on what you initially taught someone or modeled for someone. So just reflect on that. Remember your why, and don't get caught up in seeing the outcome right away. That is what I want to challenge you to do based on this episode. So before I close it out, I do want to think about those leaders in the wild, quote unquote, that segment that I do, Leadership in the Wild. I want to think about those leaders in my life that I'm seeing do really great things. They're all around me. I've been exposed to a lot of them recently. In an upcoming episode, I'm going to talk about all my travel, and you're going to get to hear about the differences that I'm seeing in places and the way in which people lead. This is going to be a blanket Leadership in the Wild. I want to acknowledge that we all lead very differently, and the way in which we lead might not appear to be the best way for everybody. But what I've seen happen, the trend that I'm seeing is people really adapt to the leadership style, can see the positive intentions and what you're trying to create, and it is really having a major impact. So some of these folks that, say to me, I can't have difficult conversations very comfortably. I don't feel like I'm an effective leader because of that. Well, they have a skill set that some of these other folks don't have, that they are trying to develop to be more effective and be like you. So my leadership in the wild is a broad statement. It is for you, whoever's listening to this. I want you to think about the strengths that you have, the value that you bring to the people around you. I'm not going to say the value to your organization, the value you bring to the people around you. It might be the value you bring to your child, or a friend, or whoever it is. And I want you to think about how you can lean into that strength and consider the impact it can have, instead of always focusing on what other people might be able to do differently than you, what you consider to be better than you. Let's lean into the style that you have and build off of those strengths instead of always trying to fill the gaps. So I want to acknowledge what you're already doing and celebrate that success today. So again, this isn't my typical leadership in the wild where I would identify one person, but I think it's worth a shout out to everybody. So thank you for sticking through to the end of the episode. I hope you found value in the information I shared today. Maybe you're experiencing some of these things and you needed to hear that it's worth investing in long-term leadership, even if you are not seeing the outcomes right away, or even if you never get to witness the outcomes yourselves. I want to hear from you, even if it's not submitting a challenge. I want your feedback. How do you think the podcast is going? What can we change and improve? I am going to, when I have guests in here, start asking them for feedback on who they'd like to see as guests as well. If you have ideas for a guest, even if it's not you, and you want to shoot us a message and say, hey, I think I have the perfect guest for you. Again, email us at info@branchingoutpodcast.com. Let us know who that guest might be so we can reach out and see if they might be a good fit. Again, in 2026, we are looking for podcast sponsors. We've been working at this podcast for a while now, coming up on 2 years of consistent weekly episodes, which is a lot of hard work. A lot of information has been shared. A lot of guests have visited. And I really want to find those brands that align with what we're trying to do here, the impact we're trying to have through the podcast. If your brand tends to align, or you know of someone who might be a good fit, we'd like to get them involved in the podcast. There are so many different ways to be involved. Please reach out if you're interested in sponsorship so we can talk about the packages that are available, how we can get you on here, get some commercials out there for you, and spotlight what you're doing and how it aligns with branching out. So thanks again for listening. And until next time, keep branching out.